Hi everyone, Karen Roby here for ZDNet with Danny Palmer in the UK for us. We're talking today, Danny, of course, about GDPR, and what we're finding is that only 1 in 3 businesses are compliant. So let's just start with GDPR for us, give us a really quick refresher on it, and then we'll get to why companies are not doing what they're supposed to do.
Thanks. Well, yeah, GDPR stands for General Data Protection Regulation, which was a set of laws introduced across the European Union as of May 2018, with the idea of allowing consumers to have a bit more control over how their data is used and more say over what organizations can and can't do with their data, which basically it's part of the reason it's there is to try and make sure organizations are being ethical with how they're using data in one case of things, and also making sure they're being sensible with how they store and use data. One of the main headline sort of acts of GDPR is the prospect of fines for organizations which are not compliant with the legislation, which it's designed to, it's not designed, well, they say it's not designed to be a stick to punish organizations with, but it's basically there for when, let's say, an organization is hacked or has a data breach. If the organization was found to have done everything possible it could to protect itself, and the hack happened anyway, they're unlikely to get fined. However, if you're an organization which was found that you were not being compliant with GDPR legislation, and that you had poor security loopholes or hadn't followed basic security things which should be done, like simple things which organizations should be following, like storing data in an encrypted fashion, that sort of thing. That's when an organization could potentially be fined, with the fines potentially being up to 4% of that company's annual revenue, which for the largest organizations could be a heck of a lot of money.
So, Danny, GDPR, of course, came into effect just over a year ago, but 1 in 3 companies still not compliant. That's a pretty significant amount of companies here. So it seems the fines really may not be scaring them too much, or is it just that they haven't gotten together what they need to do in order to comply?
It's probably a bit of both. I mean, even though there was sort of years of sort of GDPR is coming sort of campaigns, it only seems that a lot of organizations only really started planning for it in the months running up to May 2018. And if you're doing something on a deadline like that, you might find that there's two of the reasons that the organization has said they're not compliant is because it's a complex process. So organizations haven't been able to still sort of examine their network, examine their practices, and find out how stuff is done and how to make it compliant. There's also the caveat of that just doing this costs money. It's not cheap to audit your entire organization, no matter what the size. So it could potentially be that some organizations might be almost gambling in a way, that we're saying, we're not doing this because it's too expensive. But if later down the line they're found to be non-compliant and have had a breach or have been hacked or have been misusing data, that could result in being more costly further down the line for them. The most common reason for organizations being not compliant at the moment is because they blame legacy systems, saying that old IT systems they're using, old software, just can't be made to comply with GDPR, which is a big issue of itself. And there's going to be some organizations where, in order to comply with these regulations and how data should be used and protected, would have to basically uproot their entire infrastructure, which again links into it being complex and the cost of this thing. So it's a tricky situation for them. But as I previously mentioned, if they're found to be not to be compliant, in this situation, they're going to be risking a heavy fine.
Yeah, and absolutely, and it is a huge task to take on, and it's one that isn't going to end either, Danny. As you mentioned in your article, data protection, of course, it's an ongoing issue. So this is something that companies, even if they are compliant at one point, they have to keep, re-examining their practices and what they're doing.
Yeah, it's not just one and done. It's something that organizations would have to keep reevaluating, be that on a sort of monthly, 6 monthly, or yearly basis. Because as new technologies, new software, new processes come into organizations, they're going to have to make sure that these things are all compliant with GDPR. And there has already been some cases of organizations getting quite heavy fines for being found to be non-compliant. I guess the most high-profile one of these, in the UK at least, was the case of British Airways, which is being fined a total of £183 million for how it approached its cybersecurity. Basically, the company was hacked. About details of about 500,000 customers got leaked, and the Information Commissioner's office here found that after an investigation, they said that the British Airways had poor security arrangements throughout the company, which it's made it one of the first major organizations to be majorly fined post GDPR. This attack happened in September 2018, 3 months after GDPR came into force. So it was kind of really one of the first times that the legislation was put into force, and it's not been financially good for British Airways, and I don't imagine the reputational hit for being a victim of such a major attack is going to have much good impact on them either.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. There's a lot of moving parts to this, Danny. So we thank you for this information. And if you want to know more about GDPR and the fines involved, make sure you check out Danny's article there on ZDNet. Thanks for watching.